Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to the International House. I'm Professor Ksenia Chmutina. I'm director of the IIS, and I'm really sorry I'm not with you in person. Today, I will be there tomorrow and for the rest of the week. Well, first of all, I just want to say how excited we are at the IIS to host UNESCO conference this week. As some of you may know, LAFPRA hosts 3 UNESCO chairs. This is the largest number of UNESCO chairs we have in the UK. Professor Chiu-Hua Lian, Professor Mike Wilson, and Professor Richard Giulianotti are all leading their UNESCO chairs programs. And so it's really wonderful to celebrate their work again at LAFPRA this year. We had a very successful UNESCO Day last year. And so it's great to have this grander and bigger this year. And so as a part of these UNESCO celebrations, we are running the conference on Thursday and Friday, where UK UNESCO chairs will be joining us at LAFPRA. And we are also be running the launch of Chiu-Hua Center and workshops Mike and Richard will be doing on Thursday morning. And of course, today and tomorrow, we are hosting IIS fellows who are working closely and supporting our UNESCO chairs. And it's really wonderful to be able to combine this all together and to see the fantastic research that is happening in 3 different themes, but that nevertheless connects with so many issues that we are really keen to explore further, and that hopefully you will be all discussing today as the talks progress. And so in this first part of the UNESCO seminars with our IIS fellows, we have Professor Saini Yan and Professor Desmond Kwarmaplan. They are presenting today. For those of you online, if you have any questions, please just post them into the Q&A on Teams, and Kieran and the team will be taking questions in the room. And then please join us tomorrow at the same time for the second part of the dual seminars. Before I pass over to Chiu-Hua to introduce Professor Yan, just a couple of housekeeping rules. The presentations are recorded and they will be released as our podcast and also on our YouTube channel, but we will not be recording any questions or comments, so please feel free to ask anything. Well, enjoy the seminar, network, talk to each other. I'm sure you'll have a great time, and I will see you all tomorrow and for the rest of the week. Thank you.
Thank you, Ksenia.
Yes, thanks, Ksenia, I think, for introducing me. And then my name is Chiu-Hua Lian, Professor of Water Engineering here in Loughborough. At the same time, one of the 3 UNESCO chairs in Loughborough here. So I think really proud we have a large number, of UNESCO chairs here in Loughborough. Today, it's my great honor to welcome really Professor Saini Yang here in Loughborough. I think apart from being a renowned academic, a professor in the Beijing Normal University, Professor Yang also, the current executive director of the IRDR, the Integrated, Research in Disaster Risk, which is an important international program sponsored by both UNDR and also the International Science of Council. So more promoting this kind of international promotion, capacity development, a range of activities, which Saini will introduce a bit later on. Meanwhile, I think just mentioned, I think Saini is also my friend as well. So I think, it's her first time, to be in Loughborough. Yes. So it's a really, really great, to have her here. And then apart from all of this great profile, and then she's been also very actively, I think, taking up the important roles in UN system. So I think without further delay, I think we would like to hear what Saini to share about the great things about IRDR.
And also my research.
Yeah, and also research. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you very much, Chiu-Hua. So it's really a pleasure to be here. Thank you very much for inviting me for the UNESCO Forum. So yes, as Chiu-Hua mentioned, I have a couple hats. Yes, right now I am the director for IRDR, Integrated Research on Disaster Risk. And also I'm a professor at Beijing Normal University, focusing on disaster risk reduction and climate change adaptation. And also I'm the co-chair of UNESCO Chair Mountain Disaster Reduction and Resilience. Yeah, I think that's part of the reason I'm here today. So to cover all my responsibilities, I split today's talk to two parts. The first part is really about IRD. I think this is very important moment for me to share the mission, the work IRDR is doing, and also try to link more with Loughborough University, especially just to set up this new ICLE. Yes. And of course, I would be more than glad to share some of our study on disaster risk and this is especially systemic risk. So let me start. Okay, so this is the one, right? Okay. All right. So I would like to take the first 20 minutes to introduce IRDR's efforts in support of implementation of Sendai framework. You probably all know Sendai framework, right? This is UNDR. Well, sorry, that's the UN strategy for disaster risk reduction for the period between 2015 to 2030. Why I really want to, I'm so eager to introduce this because from next year, from 2027, it's the starting year of the negotiation for the new global strategy of disaster reduction after 2030. So that's why I really want to engage more partners in the negotiation and also hear your recommendation for the next strategy. No? Yeah, it's this button, right?
Left and right, yeah.
Left and right. Okay, all right. So first, as Xiuhua already mentioned, IRDR was co-sponsored by the International Science Council as well as UNDR. It has a very broad mission, which is mobilize science technology to support inclusive, safe, and sustainable development. Okay, and for IRDR, we have three missions in detail. Number one is to improve knowledge and understanding for risk and uncertainty. It's not easy. It's not an easy job. And this is only the first part. The second one is promote innovation in research and action, explore effective solutions in DRR. That's because DRR is a quite an interdisciplinary subject. It's not that theoretical. If you really want to have impact, you're gonna have this linkage between science, policy, and practice. So that's why we're looking at solutions. And the third thing is build institutional capacity for risk-informed development. Also very vague and very ambitious, I have to say. Then, okay, all right. Then back in 2021, IRDR, together with ISE and UNDR, this.
That's my fault. There we go.
Oh, I got it. It's not linked.
Yeah.
It's not connected yet. Okay, all right. No worry. So this is every 10 years, IRDR will release like a global research framework of disaster risk. And this is one released in 2021 for the 10 years from 2022 to 2030, almost 10 years. And for this research framework, of course, that was co-released by ICU and UNDR. They listed 9 priorities. I became the ED from the end of 2024. So when I stepped into the office, I noticed that this 9 priority is just so broad. So I decided to invite our IRDR community to vote for the 3 priority in the year of 2025 to 2027, which are addressing equality, justice, and marginalization, harness technologies, data, and knowledge for risk reduction, and support regional national science, and knowledge for policy and action. So I think these 3 make a lot of sense. I'm very glad that our community voted for the 3, and we're working on that right now. So far, IRDR have 17 international centers of excellence. They cover all the continents: New Zealand, UK, Colombia, Germany, Nepal, India, China, Greece, UK, South Africa, Taipei, Canada, Malaysia, Pakistan, Japan, and that one I think is for Newcastle, right? Robert would be here, right, on Thursday. Richard? Sure. Well, it's okay, no worry. Then IRDR is umbrella. It's a network basically. So it also has, besides ICOE, International Center of Excellence for doing the actual research, there are also national committees and regional committees, which covers, all the continents. I just visited the IRDR Australia National Committee last month, the end of last month, and this NC is a very important instrument. For example, like I visited Natural Hazard Research Australia. These are the National Agency for Disaster Risk Research, and they are actually the one that closely link the science and the policy side, because they directly provide service to the ministries, and also they are the agency that is planning the research in disaster risk reduction for that country. So that's the kind of the position of NC in a country. Besides the NC and the regional committee, we also have Young Scientist Program. So far, we have, actually, we have more than that. We just released the newest version, the newest batch of IRDR Young Scientists, about like 250 now, and they are from 74 countries. We have like periodical call for application. And they need to work on multidisciplinary subjects and also need to focus on integrated research topics. So, and also IRDR in the past years has set up like a network partners such as UNESCO, WHO, WMO, World Bank Group, etc., CRUISE, IFRC, AAB, as well as other scientific organizations and private sectors. Regarding to what IRDR has done to support the implementation of Sendai, there are several aspects. The first one is really to enhancing the understanding of hazard, disaster, and the risk. One typical output is the HIPS. I don't know if you have heard about the hazard called hazard definition and classification. It started in 2013, and basically there are so many natural hazards. How can we give it a reinforced definition, and how can we better classify it? This is very important because if we really want to understand disaster risk, we need to have statistics, right? And how can we set up the statistic system for disaster losses? This depends on the classification. So that's why we had our first version in 2013, and that classification actually is used to support the UNDRR database called Desinventa. But right now we have updated to the disaster loss and the damage system. Then last year, the second version was released called HIPS, Hazard Information Profiles. Well, this profile has greatly expanded to 281 hazards, including like 8 clusters, and it expanded from natural hazard to biological to environmental, technological, and even actual terrestrial hazards. So, and also more importantly, they are really looking at the interaction among the different hazards. This is something that is very significant change, because we know that if we look at the global landscape, the world definitely is facing more compound effect, right? Basically, it's all these different hazards are interacting with each other. So we need to better understand the interaction. So HIPS is trying to work on that. And for enhancing understanding of hazard, disaster, and the risk, another contribution from IRDR is really the FORING. FORING stands for the Forensic Insight. This is a methodology. They call it Forensic Investigation of Disaster. This also was proposed by our IRDR Phase 1. This methodology has been widely accepted globally, especially in Latin America and the developing countries. And in 2024, UNDRR released a special report on the application of FORING. I think the interesting part of foreign methodology is a relatively very easy approach that really look at the holistic root cause of the social cultural dimension. Because again, for IRDR actually was started from 2009. Why it's called integrated research is that we notice disaster risk is not only about the natural part. It's not only, natural hazard is just the hazard. If it's a disaster, then it will interfere with the social cultural dimension. So it is very important for us to integrate the research from the natural perspective with the social perspective. So that's a very interesting output. And of course, we are also producing many work on strengthening governance and investing for resilience. This year, IRDR released a special report on managing dengue risk along the railway. This is also a very typical integrated research. What they're doing is, dengue fever, right? Dengue fever is basically spread by mosquitoes. But right now, the interesting part is, well, the challenging part is mosquitoes. Number one is climate change. Um, more area is having the right temperature and humidity for mosquito. And the number two is this mosquito, they can travel with transport uh, facilities like tram, like airplane. And basically this is spreading this disease everywhere. So one of our ICOE in Hong Kong, Chinese Hong Kong University, they are proposing this physical control, which proved to be very effective. They developed some very cheap physical instruments that can help with the control of dengue risk. And also last year in Geneva, we released our IRDR science policy, which is a disaster risk reduction products and process, knowledge sharing, place, and context specific actions. This is one way because IRDR is playing a role like the nexus between science and policy. So one important role of IRDR is based on the findings, based on the research output, we need to provide recommendation to the governments and UN agency for what is for the recommendation, what is the next, what should we propose, what should we promote. So we are really proposing place and the context of specific actions. I think that's also very important if you are in the domain of disaster risk reduction. Then regarding to disaster, enhancing disaster preparedness and build back better, IRDR is supporting the early warning for all actions. This work also started from IRDR phase one. In phase one, back in 2017, our IRDR working group started to work on multi-hazard impact-based early warning system. I know that this doesn't sound new now, but that was back in 2017, when the most early warning systems are still focused on hazards. But from that time, IRDR started to propose this. Number one, multi-hazard. Number two is impact-based rather than hazard-based. I'm not familiar about the situation in UK. So, for example, in China, I'm from Beijing. So in China, even right now, our early warning is still focused on hazard intensity. I'm not sure if that's the case in UK. But now we're trying to shift that it really into impact. Now, because if something is happening in a place that was nobody, actually it doesn't matter if you have early warning system or not. it only matters when it can generate huge impact. So from from 2017, they are still working on this effort. Then we developed a system, and this system is I think it's very comprehensive. And I think the beautiful part of it is it's not only about the institutional arrangement, about like Earth data observation, data information collection, and hazard assessment. It's also about this impact forecasting and also the warning and infrastructure products, as well as dissemination and the notification methods. I have been visited many places regarding this effectiveness of early warning system. The current challenges, number one, if the public can really understand your early warning information. Number two is even that when they receive this information, will they really change their behavior? Early warning information can save lives only if people react after they receive the information. However, risk communication is something quite almost missed everywhere. Well, maybe you can share your story in UK with me. I hope that UK is doing a better job in on this aspect. So that's why we have risk communication is also part of it. So back in 2017, we started to work on that, and this methodology has been used. Sorry, I skipped that. Has been used in we help about like four countries in Asia Pacific region and also Southeast Asia to establish their multi-hazard impact-based early warning system. So it's and also UNDRR they released a video to promote this in 2021, and then from 2022, you probably know that UN starts the early warning for all initiative that's supported by WMO, UNDRR, IFRC, and the ITC. And of course, we are always using like a satellite data for emergency response and recovery monitoring. Then that's something we're having right now from phase one. Then for towards the post 2030, last year the SRSG of UNDR visited us. He raised many interesting ideas. I think maybe I can share his thoughts with you. He was asking me, say, he noticed that in each country, they will have their own the DRR science technology innovation institutional structure. He noticed that this structure is quite effective in some countries, but not effective in the other countries. So he suggests IRDR to carry out research and really can better compile the different institutional structure and its effectiveness, so that they can propose that in the next global strategy. And the second question he asked is, PRR, of course, for UN system, SDG is their kind of a common mandate, right? So he was asking me, say, what is the relationship between the DRR indicators and the SDG indicators? Because if we are talking about integrated approach, the most fundamental integration probably is how DRR can be integrated into SDG. Well, of course, I know that SDG is facing huge challenges with, but still, we have the millennium, right? If you still remember, before 2015, we also have the millennium goal, and we didn't achieve that, but that doesn't mean that we're going to stop the efforts. So he suggests us to carry on the synthetic analysis of DRR indicator and SDG indicators. And also he was asking, okay, how can we better improve the resilient infrastructure? And can we have more innovative financial instruments to encourage the investment in resilience and the DRR? Frankly speaking, if you're talking about DRR, finally it's about money. It's all about how much money can be invested into that, right? I'm not sure. I don't know your background, but I think like maybe your research is kind of related to this topic. But when we're talking about DRR, at least from the government's perspective, we are competing with other social sector, public sectors, right? You have you have that portion of tax money, and you can split into, I don't know, education, public health, social welfare, resilience, and what is the optimal? I'll say, yeah, what is optimal assignment to each sector? That is a quite challenging question. So I think this all give us some hint on the innovative research we can carry on. And of course, he also mentioned that IRDR as integrated research, we need to better couple the social stressors with disaster risk. A typical example is right now in many mega cities, aging. Aging is a big problem, and especially in Europe and in Asian megacities, we're aging rapidly. And this is changing the disaster risk landscape. And this is changing the protocols, changing the contingency plan. We need to change our infrastructure design to accommodate the disaster risk and the aging issue. So I think all of these are something that I think UNDRR is care about. So this gives us a lot of hint for the future research direction. And these are the topics that I'm trying to solicitate help from our partners. Thank you very much. Yeah. So then skip this because another thing IRDR is currently working on, of course, is AI assisted. We are working on IRDR large language model to provide like as we call it AI research assistant. And so if you're interested, we have a bit better version, not very ideal, but right now you can use it already. If you're interested, you can scan the QR code. And of course, we are working on risk-informed development. We're collaborating with the World Bank Group to see how can we better integrate disaster risk into territorial planning. This is an ongoing project. We're also having some pilot study, but I'm gonna skip this. But I think one thing very interesting is about the vulnerability information. I shouldn't call it information profiles. This basically is a still vulnerability initiative. Because if we really want to better understand disaster, only hazard is not enough. We have to better understand the vulnerability information. But this is too huge. This vulnerability is much more complicated than hazard itself. I think this one needs a lot of help from the academia globally so that we can better understand the combination of hazard exposure, then what is vulnerability in different regions, right? So this is also something that we're looking for help. Yeah. Then let's skip this. We're gonna have lots of upcoming events. So hopefully we can engage more with your university in the future, especially since right now you're one of our ICLE, right? So I'm gonna stop here for this part. Let me switch to the next one. Thank you. I know that I'm a little bit late. Yeah. Okay, so the second part. This is about our research, because the first mission of IRDR is the better understanding of disaster risk, right, and uncertainty. And I have been working in this aspect for many years, so I had some thoughts about it, but I still think it's very challenging. So I would be very much, this is more personal research, so I would be very much interested if some of you are working this domain, and maybe we can build a future collaboration on that. This is just a risk of, you know this, right? I can skip this, I guess. Basically, what I want to say is, if we look at long-term ones, extreme weather events is always there. The short term, keep changing. If you look at the bars,
On the left, they keep changing, right? From 2022, 2023, 24, 25, keep changing. But if you look at the long-term one, extreme events always there. So, and also critical change to Earth system, biodiversity, natural resources shortage. This gives us some thoughts about how to tackle the problem of systemic risk. Systemic risk actually is our role. ISC appointed IRDR as a lead for developing and implementation of a global risks research agenda on systemic risk. But still, right now, frankly speaking, I have no clue of how to implement that. That is way too complicated. We have partners in YASA who is working on systemic risk. I need to talk to them issue. But I want to start from integrated research. This is something that's more familiar. Are you working on hydrology? No. No. So only Chuhua, you are.
Yeah, I think my team is.
Okay, all right.
Not many others.
Okay, all right. So you are familiar with this risk assessment based on risk matrix, based on expected losses. Of course, you can go fancier if you have better data, right? We are familiar with the exceedance curves, scenario risk for future climate change. It's all okay. But what about like integrated research for multi-hazard? This is something that the academia started looking at from early 2000, I think. Yeah, of course, the further thing is multi-hazard. We don't look at the interaction of hazard, but we only look at the different hazard type and try to summarize their risk. This is one way. Then later on, academia start to look at cascading effect into, I don't know if I have enough time to expand this. Here I give one example is for the cascading effect of flood. For example, flood definitely will bring damage to crops, will contaminate water supply, damage the health system. And then the food shortage will bring more people will increase the death rate, and also contaminate will increase the disease rate and also increase death rate. The damage to health system going to reduce the capacity of the health system, and the injury will bring more people to hospital. Then of course, then there will be overloads of health system. So all this are interact with each other. If we really want to understand the systemic risk brought by flood itself, we need to kind of plot the whole system. And in this process, we'll see that we not only need to know the physical damage, but also we need to understand the functional damage. And then we need to know the interaction of the different sectors, and also need to calculate the indirect losses. This is such a complicated process. And you can think about this is only for flood. Think about it for heat wave, for drought, for the cold wave, right? For storm. And also these hazards will interact with each other. So from my personal perspective, I think like if I really want to have a holistic approach towards systemic risk, it sounds like a mission impossible to me. So I'm still thinking like, how can we better tackle this issue? And of course, I forgot to mention that there are also like an interacting issue because human play a very important role in amplification of risk and say the reducing of risk. For example, we have this last, I think 5 years ago in America, there is like a cold storm called Uri. It basically damaged the electricity system in Texas. And then people start to move. They need to move out of, they will evacuate it and move to the vicinities. And then it suddenly increased the demand for this vicinity area. Then it creates more electricity failures. And of course, we notice that in this process, human behavior also is changing the feedback loops. So if we really want to understand systemic risk, we need to incorporate the human factor into the modeling. Okay, another challenge. So, okay, let's look at the systemic risk. Systemic risk is really not a new idea. Was proposed maybe in early 2000s. But I think the key, the fundamental reason behind the systemic is actually the complexity. Yeah. Complexity, of course, is everywhere. Cell, human brain, social group, internet. These are interconnected systems. And this system they're not only challenged by internal local failure, but also external interference. And also due to their intricate structure, sometimes the system will collapse. The system will collapse. So when we are talking about systemic risk, basically we're thinking like when this system collapse will be triggered. So there are definitely different definitions from Kaufman and Otto-Rand. I kind of like the definition by Otto-Rand, say that systemic risk refers to the possibility of a catastrophic regime shift or even breakdown of a global system that involves many interacting elements that poorly understood. This dimension of large potential threat within complex web of interacting elements is a key difference. When we look at systemic risk, we see there are like several features that we should focus on. And the first thing is about agency and emergence. You probably all heard about emergence, right? Emergence is one of the most fascinating scientific questions for me. Because this tells us that the behavior at a microscopic level may not be in accordance with the behavior of the system in the macroscopic. And this tells us that the skill factor is very important. And this is very critical because when we used to have causality analysis, we kind of believe that if we understand the behavior as a microscopic, you can use this causality analysis then to predict the system behavior, right? But if there is emergence, there may not be the case because this this causality may happen at a different scale of the system. And sometimes maybe you can find a better indicator at the macroscopic so that you can use to predict the projection of a system. So this is something very important for systemic risk. The second is for systemic risk, we are always looking at the tipping and the cascading. There is the program called the planetary boundary, right? If some of you are working on climate change. And right now, I think the tipping points is also a very hot topic for climate risk. But I think why tipping is important because it's an indicator for systemic risk. And of course, we're trying to identify parameters that can indicate system instability. This is also relevant to the emergence. And another thing is about historicity. Historicity basically says that the history will repeat itself. The system always repeats itself, but we barely. What is the term? I remember there is one philosopher says that the only lesson we learn from history is that we learn nothing from it. Right? This is not exact wording, right? But basically says like systemic risk. Well, no, systemic failure, they repeat itself, but we'll still lack of the understanding of the history. So this is another direction systemic risk research can focus on. So in the past years, because I was originally I was trained as a civil engineer. I was trained as a bridge engineer for my undergraduate study, then later on transportation planner. And of course, for my PhD, I was more focusing on complex network modeling and algorithms. So in the past 20, 30 years, I was working on infrastructure risk assessment. This is a figure from the UK climate change risk assessment. I like this figure very much, and I think this is this figure is by Richard. Maybe, yeah. But our research group started this work back in before 2010. Basically, the exact same framework. We start from the climate variables and try to look at this climate extremes, how they will influence each infrastructure assets. Basically, look at how this extreme temperature, wind, or flooding will influence the road, the bridge, the harbor. Then we start to look at the infrastructure as a network, because from there I can better understand the impact of this variable, environment variable, to the function of the system. Then after we finish that, we're looking at networks, because infrastructure networks basically are interdependent. The failure in one system will definitely influence the other in networks, such as like electricity and the transportation and the resources. They're all influenced. Then we're looking at that, called infrastructure interdependency risk. Then from there, hopefully we're trying to go for systemic risk using through this disruption of supply chain and also macroeconomic impacts. We're still stuck here. We're stuck here. And also you have also unlimited combination here. This is the challenging part for this approach. I think it's okay as a framework, but if you really want to implement that, you have all the different combinations. So this may not be the optimal solution for this problem. So there's something I really want to really discuss with my colleagues and the peers globally. So we had some. Our group has several interesting top research in the past years. The number one is regarding to tipping points in Earth system, which is the natural, the variable part. We have because I was a modeler, right? So we are looking at this teleconnection among tipping elements in the Earth system and using the climate network. This basically is a data-driven methodology that can better understand the teleconnection of the climate variables in different regions. Based on that network modeling, basically we can identify. We're trying to use this method, try to use it for forecast. We use it for temperature. We use it for sea level. We are also using it, but these are the basically two main variables that we think has a better prediction effect. But still, a lot of uncertainty there. I want to be fast. Okay. And one thing is in this research very much related to systemic risk is that we use a methodology called a critical slowing down to understand the tipping of a system. This is the snow coverage in Tibetan Plateau, and we are using this critical slowing down methodology to analyze its AR1 and the DFA. And when a system is approaching to the regime shift, usually the returning speed, because if a system is in a catchment, assume that if you kind of bring a kind of external force into it, gonna like vibrate, right? And when the system is going to jump to another regime, then usually this return speed will be slower. That means we are having a larger variance, right? And this is one way to detect the system stability. So we are using that to try to identify the tipping points of the system. Then we are also looking at the microscopic and the macroscopic. Sorry about that. as an engineer, as a transportation engineer, I always try to use started from the microscopic to understand the behavior of traffic in a big system. And we start from like our following methodology, then try to understand, if there is like extreme rainfall or floodings in the entire national wide, how the national traffic will change. And from this study, I also observed that the emergence that the microscopic behavior is really not inconsistent with the macroscopic behavior. And of course, we did in our group, we have a lot of work on the input analysis, such as how flooding, how extreme temperature will influence the infrastructure, and what is the physical damage, and what is the functional damage. Here is one example that we are looking at the four different types of shocks, three types of shocks to the highway system in China and in the US. These three type of external attacks, they're random. For example, like a rainfall. Different from random because flooding will always follow the rivers, right? So it has kind of like a geological distribution. Then the third type of local attacks is called localized attack. That you can think about earthquake. Earthquake is very much a typical local attack. It always influences a small area. Therefore, the other parts will not influence that, right? So we're trying to look at the physical damage and the functional damage of the highway network in China and the US under the three types of different attacks. And our finding is very interesting. We noticed that the Chinese highway network is much more vulnerable than the US highway network. This has a lot of implications. Do you know why is that? One main reason is that Chinese highway network, it's a very asymmetric. And the US highway network is more symmetric. That's part of the reason can explain the difference. Why these two systems, they're under the same intensity of disturbance, but their functional and physical performance vary so much. Of course, there are many. I have to skip here. If you're interested, I'm very glad to talk with you about. There are lots of interesting findings here, and also our research revealed that usually the trigger points, basically the key spot in a system. The system, if you increase intensity of the flooding, if you look at the function, of course it will decrease, right? But we notice that at some spot here, the system will have a dramatic change. And this critical spot may not be the traditional important node that we think have very high connectivity. It can be something that not that important, but when the node was damaged, then in a sudden the system will have a performance regime shift. So so based on this work, we also developed like a prediction model for the route change of the network, and we tested it in the different provinces in China and the US. Very nice performance. Of course, we also had some works on this interdependent system, such as we couple the highway network with the railway network and try to see that when there is different external shocks, how the behavior in this different system will change. And the result tells us that it varies hugely. But in short, I just want to say that this gives us a lot of hint. Basically, it says if a dense system is coupled with a sparse system, then the sparse system will be hurted more when they receive external shocks. This can also be proved in many other systems, such as economic system and social system. Think about the economic crisis in 2008. It started in US, right? But in the end, which country is bankrupted? Greece. Just because US is much more, if you look at it as a system, it's much more denser. And some countries like Venezuela, Greece, they're a more sparse system. When they are linked together, when there is an external shock, basically this small system will get more spreading shocks from the interaction. So, and of course, we're also looking at this cascading effects in interdependent network, as I mentioned, for the electricity system. Also, we're trying to build some like macroeconomic models to better understand this cost benefit analysis of early warning system or other DRR instruments. All I can say is that right now we do have some models, but I have to say that these models are still quite limited. We developed a macroscopic model using the IO input-output modeling, and also use a CGE model to better understand what is the cost benefit of early warning system for the highway network in China. Of course, I did this work for the Ministry of Transport. When they asked me the question, say that if it's worth the money when they invest, they are investing, I don't know, like billions of RMB every year for the national early warning system of highway system. So I need to better. I try to explore this, but later on, I just noticed that these problems are way too big than currently we can handle right now. But still, these are the questions we as scientists need to answer. If we really want to have science-informed policy, we have to produce some knowledge for them, right? Well, so far, we have some explorations of the systemic risk, but I think we are still very far away from touching the hardcore of the systemic risk. So I want to stop here because I think my time is up. But with this, I just want to start the conversation with everybody and to see if you're interested in any relevant research that we can figure out, we can collaborate together. Yeah, that's it. Thank you.
Thank you.